The reward of faithfulness. When Craig finally agreed to heed to God's call to become a full-time minister, he wasn't sure he was quite prepared for the task ahead. It took him 2 good years of struggling before he accepted the role of assistant pastor in Fellowship Bible Church, Waldport. He had just graduated from the university and was hoping to build a career in sales. His friend Tom, who graduated together with him, had hinted him about how lucrative the career could be. They had made their plans. Young and smart, they were committed to going all out in pursuit of the American dream. It was 1932, and it was also the period of the Great Depression. The government had set up strategies to bring an end to the depression that has crippled economic activities. The prospects that the depression was coming to an end soon were high. Little did he know that God had something different in the offing. His father was a minister of the Grace Baptist Church. He retired the same year Greg went to begin his studies at the Oregon State University. Growing up as a son of the Baptist minister came with a lot of difficulties for him. First, his father was always on the move. It was from one revival meeting to another throughout all of Oregon. On several other occasions, he has spent weeks preaching in some churches in nearby Idaho. With a full schedule annually, Reverend Oliver William, Craig's father, hardly had time for his family. Their mother had always had her hands full trying to raise him and his 5 brothers. Secondly, despite the constant engagements to speak, Reverend Oliver had very little to show for all of his traveling and preaching. They lived more in having little than in abundance. It wasn't so much that their father earned little, but he was a generous giver. Sometimes he ended up meeting the needs of one orphan or widow before coming home with very little. Whenever he got some dollars as honorarium, or when he got his salary. For these 2 reasons, Craig loathed the idea of going into the ministry. God has blessed us so much. It is only right that we share with others in need. Craig's father will always say to his wife each time she complained about his thoughtless generosity, "But you also have a family to keep." That's true. And has God ever failed to provide for our needs? And that's actually true. In the midst of everything, they always had their daily bread. So after the conviction to go into ministry, he enrolled for a year's training in the Ashbury Theological Seminary in Kentucky. Upon return, he was asked to take his first job in Fellowship Bible Church. That was where he met Annie. 6 months later, they were married. She was also the daughter of a Baptist minister from Idaho, where her parents owned a large plantation of potatoes. So she practically grew up in the farm. On their wedding day, They made a commitment to one another and to God that they would tithe every dollar God gave them all the days of their married life. They knew that was going to be difficult, but they resolved to honor God's word. The greatest test came when Craig's salary was cut by 50%. The depression was really biting hard. Even offerings and tithes in the church reduced significantly. Like his father, Craig also found himself having to live a life of charity, even when they have little. During his service as assistant pastor, he served faithfully. A few years in his ministry, Craig's senior pastor, Reverend McGregor, was retiring from active service as a minister and was going to move to Portland. Craig was appointed to fill in the vacancy. By now, he was a father of 3 and in his mid-30s. The board and congregation's decision in the appointments was unanimous. Craig has built a strong reputation of care, faithfulness, and integrity in the church. He was loved by everyone who has met him. Even those who have never met him heard tales about him. His popularity soared among the older folks when they found he was the son of the now deceased Reverend Oliver. It was in that same year, when he took over as senior pastor, that a huge fire disaster occurred in the region. The church was affected in the disaster. It was completely razed to the ground, alongside several other homes, including the parsonage where he lived with his family. With the impact of the depression still felt, the fires dealt them a serious blow. Rebuilding the church and the parsonage took them 8 months. Through this period, Craig refused any salary from the church until the project was completed. How he and his family survived was a miracle. During the dedication of the new auditorium, Fellowship Bible Church received news of the passing away of the former senior pastor, Reverend McGregor, from his oldest son, Aaron. During his 2-day stay in Waldeport, Aaron asked to be shown the parcel of land his father purchased while he was still there. Upon survey, he told Craig that he was going to build a house on that land in memory of his father. He promised to send Craig a check as soon as he was back in Oregon. Craig was to send him the estimated cost of the construction. "I will want you to use the best materials and best design," Aaron told Craig. True to his word, Aaron sent the check for him 4 weeks later. Within the shortest period of time, Craig saw to the completion of the house. It had the best architectural design in the whole of Lincoln County. On 2 occasions, he had to reject materials the contractors bought for the building because they were substandard. On the day the new house was to be opened, Aaron arrived Waldeport and in the company of Craig and his family and some members of the congregation, they went over to the house for a housewarming lunch. When it was time for the toast, Aaron called everyone's attention. "I hope you all are having a good time." "Yeah," they all answered in unison. "All right, my father would have been here to do this, but he isn't." He paused to wipe his wet eyes. He wanted to do this, but shortly before he died, he told me about his plans to build this house while he was here. He worked with Reverend Craig. He has spoken about Reverend Craig's integrity, commitment, and sacrifices. Some of you here are aware of all that he has done in the service of the church here and the community. There were nods of approval. "Today, I have acted on my father's wishes." He paused again. "Reverend Craig, please come over here." Craig walked over to where Aaron was standing at the center of the room. Aaron pulled out the bunch of keys Craig had given him earlier. Handing it over to Craig, he said, "This house belongs to you. My father wanted you to have it. It is required of a steward that he be found faithful. We were faithful to God and served with integrity. Consider this your reward on earth before the final reward in heaven." Craig was too stunned to say anything. Applause and cheers filled the room as members of his family walked up to him to hug him.